We'll take a quick look at the cottage here. Nighttime pictures never quite do it justice. I think the only thing we're missing that I would add here is on the front porch. We're going to put a little downlight there to highlight it, but I think the light in the two sides of the windows was nice, create some symmetry. We're just missing a little bit of a dark spot in the middle there, and then as we kind of go around the side, we only use 6 lights on this guy, which is nice, but we just kind of highlight it again around the side here. Just to give a little bit, and as it gets darker, you'll really be able to see the subtleties in the light. A little bit higher up is just tough to see right now, and then again by the entrance, we did the same thing over on this side, and I think everything turned out really nice. Very subtle lighting, but just enough to make it pop so that you can kind of see it from a distance. And then we'll show you the driveway here again as we get a little bit better light as it gets a little bit darker here.
Hey, Joshua, thanks for reaching out here. Yeah, I'd love to give you a few thoughts and a few ideas. I love your house. I love the pillars, the stonework, the second story stuff, as well as some of the stuff you're doing in the beds. I will talk about future plantings and stuff. I mean, any trees that you're planting that are eventually going to be, 6 to 20 feet, you're going to want to highlight with an uplight like this. Anything that is over 25 feet, which, I mean, you have a new landscape, so not something you have to worry about. You're going to want to use a slightly brighter bulb. The nice thing is with any of those trees you plant, and with these lights, a big reason why we choose this option is that as that tree grows and say eventually it gets over 25 feet, you can just swap out the bulbs in these for a brighter LED bulb to make sure that you're getting light to the top. So I like that. I like wash lights. If you're planting any lower line shrubs that are, say under 6 feet, any kind of unique features, statues, fountains and stuff like that in the yard, I really like the wash lights. It's a less intense light. It's a wider angle, softer light. It does great for any of that lower line stuff. And then I'll just mention the option of, some different path lights. Modern path lights are really popular right now. They are a little bit pricier, but it's a really cool look. But for your application, I think these guys would work really nice too, because these ones spread light about 270 degrees in front and to the side, whereas this one's 360, and I'll show you why that is kind of important in a project like yours. So what I would do is I would use my standard accent light like I just talked about, and I would have it to light these pillars, and I'll just try and give you an example of kind of what we're going for. As you can see here, we're a house like this where we've kind of lit those pillars. Again, you can see just some examples of how some of these trees are lit. This is obviously a very wide, expansive tree, and same thing, if you're planting any of those and they're small to start, you can start with one light, and then down the road as it gets bigger, you can add another light to catch different angles. But this is kind of showing you because this will be very similar look to what we're going to go with on your property. So I would have my accent lights on both of these pillars to light up the stonework, light up the pillars. And as you can see on the picture here, what I like about doing that is see how the light hits the top and you kind of get some reflective light. It almost creates like a lit archway. It looks like you have those areas lit. That's why I like doing that in those areas, not too far back from the house, maybe 18 inches to 12 inches back from these pillars, almost shining straight up to light this whole entryway. I would do the same on this pillar here. And then I would keep that theme somewhat consistent across the front of the house here. And I think what I would do is I would try and get one of those accent lights kind of right up in the middle section here. And then I would probably try and do the same kind of underneath the windows, again, fairly close, that's just shining almost straight up, so that you just have that consistent light pattern across the whole front. And the nice thing is you will get some reflective light that's going to come back down to light some of these areas. But this is where you also may want to add a little bit of path lighting. So for example, if you lit both of these, you may want to throw a path and garden light here and a path and garden light here, just to highlight the front of the bed and whatever you might plant, as well as it, because it has that 360, it's going to splash light back onto this area too and help light what I believe is a little bit of stonework and stuff there too. And then as you plant the trees kind of over here or along these sides, that's where I would use the accent light to accent those again. And really you're just creating symmetry and balance as much as possible. I mean, it's the same as I talk about beautiful people have symmetrical faces. I wouldn't know, but that's what they say. Same thing when it comes to lighting. The more symmetry you can have and balance, the more natural it looks, and it just it looks like it fits. So that's what I would do there. And then same thing on this side with the path and garden lights, especially because you have a pathway here. I mean, if you were to throw those accent lights there, you might throw a path light in here, you might throw one kind of in here, you might throw one kind of in here, and you might throw another one or two over here to help light the pathway. And it's not so much that you're trying to light the whole pathway or get the proper spread or anything. It's more that you're just getting some kind of consistent spacing between those, whether it be 3 lights, 4 lights, or 5 lights, just so it looks natural and you don't have like 2 lights right by each other and then one over here and then one over here. You just want to kind of get that consistent spacing. The other thing I will talk about, and I just want to cruise through the pictures. Yeah, and something else you could do, I mean, if you're planning on extending the beds over here, I'm going to see if I can grab another picture I have of a property where you can see here where there's, maybe there's not a whole lot to light, but they still took the opportunity to go and throw a couple of those accent lights here just to highlight the side of the house and really just extend the viewing angle. So it's not just in the front, but also coming around from the side, you see that lit up. The only thing you may want to consider on yours is if you're planning on extending this bed at all, then you can just use a standard accent light. I think same thing, just having consistent spacing throughout this area. And this is where I would probably use a brighter bulb. I would probably use that 35 watt equivalent one that I talked about. So just by upgrading the intensity a little bit, you're going to get slightly brighter and it's going to do a better job of reaching the upper peaks. The nice thing is because you have the white trim, that's really going to shine and really going to glow. And if you extend that bed, you can just use those standard accent lights, which is nice. But if this is going to stay grass, then you're probably going to want to use an in-ground light, which basically it does the same effect as this. The only difference is you can put these flush in the lawn, and then you can just mow over them, and you're not having to trim around knuckles and worry about them getting knocked over and stuff. But same effect, just different applications. So hopefully that makes sense. And then, and then around the back and stuff, I would just plan to add later. I probably wouldn't do a whole lot back here yet until you kind of have a bit more of a design concept. And just keep in mind view and angle, because whatever you're going to plant, you want to consider if you're building the back deck here, there's awesome lighting deck options that we can talk about. But if you're looking out and you've got some trees and stuff planted, I mean, you want to go and highlight those. So I would just plan to add on later, based on the amount of lights we're talking about and the transformer that we could recommend. You could easily have room to do that. And a lighting plan or design should always be able to do that, because your landscape's always going to change. So you're going to be wanting to add on stuff later anyway. So I always tell people, do it in stages. Take your time. You can always add on as long as you plan for that up front. So that's probably what I would do for the time being, and just kind of leave it as is for now. And then this area is maybe where you might want to do the same as you've done on the other side, just so that you have that consistent balance of having that accent lighting, kind of up here. And you might just throw 2, kind of one back here and one back here, just so you have that consistent flow around the house. You could do that in the back, but I really don't think you have to, because nobody's necessarily going to see that. If you want to do anything in the back, if you have another power source and wanted to run a different transformer, I'm not even sure if these trees are yours, but I like the idea of perimeter lighting and just accenting a few of those with some accent lights. Reason being is because at night you look out and it's just a big dark space, but if you were to accent a few of those, now all of a sudden you kind of see your whole yard. And again, I don't know if those are yours to accent, but just something to consider. I love the bed area you have here. You could definitely, like I said, if you're planting a tree here, you accent that guy. You may want to throw some path and garden lights in here. Usually I'm not a big fan of doing it around the driveway, but where this would look nice is because you have the light colored rock. You're going to get a lot of reflective light off of that. I would try and enhance that by wherever you're going to put those path lights. Maybe you plant a couple, unique low growing, whether they be flowers or some kind of shrubs beside them, so that you really get the effect, because you have lighter colored stone. you're going to get a lot of reflective light from those path lights, so you almost get more bang for your buck. So I don't hate the idea of having maybe 3 of those around here, because it's directly off the pathway too. I'm not as concerned about them getting run over and stuff. So something else to consider. We talked about this, and I think I would stick with the plan there. The only other area I was going to mention is the top of the house here. I'm a big fan of trying to light these second story peaks, because I don't think enough people do it, and I think it really elevates your landscape lighting design. Really easy to do. Usually what we do is we actually just run wire right up in the gutter in the east trough, and then we'll go and actually mount a light here and mount a light over here. So same thing, you come up this side and you come up this side and mount a light using these gutter mounts like this, and you have just a standard accent light that goes now, and really you're having it shine up to these peaks. And I always get the question, well, is that going to be too much light in the window? And rarely is it ever, because one of two things is probably an unused space or bonus room, and if it is a bedroom, most people typically have that closed, their curtains closed anyway, but even so, it's still a very subtle light, and you're more trying to direct it towards these top peaks. But that's something that would guaranteed elevate your lighting plan beyond what most people will do. And if you wanted to even take it a step further, from this light, you could even run a wire up here, mount another light here that gets this peak. So just a couple options for you. I know that's a lot, but you got a good property, and like I said, start smaller. You can always add on later as your landscape plan develops. So let me know how else I can help, and we can go from there. Thanks, Joshua.
All right, guys, the next light in this project is going to be our trusty path and garden light. Now, it's probably one of the most overutilized lights in most landscape projects. People will put these all over their walkways, up and down their driveway, and it basically looks like they're trying to land a plane, and that's not the best use of these. There is a time and there is a spot for them, and when I like to use them, I prefer to use them more in garden beds and stuff like this, where you have some nice flowers that you can show off. Anytime you have like some nice rock features or anything like this or larger, path lights are really good, because light colored materials like that reflect a lot of light. So when you have a path light, it's not a very overwhelming or bright light, but if you can use it against some kind of feature like a rock or something like that, that's where you can really get some pop. It's good to also use them in conjunction with different forms of uplight. If you can use them in between where you've placed some uplights on your property, you can create a nice balance of some uplighting and then some lower level downlighting. But avoid the one common mistake I see time and time again, not only because these are expensive, and if you do it, it's just going to run up your bill, but you're not trying to run a plane, you're not trying to create a landing strip, you don't need that many path lights. Use them conservatively, but they're a really good tool in flower beds, along some walkways, in different areas like that. Okay guys, so here we have our uplight. Like I said earlier, by far the most popular light, the light that you're going to use the most in most of your landscape lighting projects. But if you'll notice here, it's not just for trees. It's a great light to use if you're trying to uplight a tree. And some quick tips about that is, same as when you're doing a house, you don't want to have it far back pointing at the tree. You're almost always better off having it more upright like this, underneath the base of a tree, than pointing at the tree. It creates a much more natural effect, a much softer light. So that's a good rule of thumb. There's different wattages. The reason I like these uplights, in particular these ones, you can get them with something called integrated fixtures, where it basically has like an LED board built right into the light. The only problem with that is that if you've never done landscape lighting before and you buy the wrong light and it doesn't give you enough light or too much light, well, you can't go and just switch out that board, or in some cases you can, but it's a lot of work. Whereas this, we just have an LED bulb that we can go and switch out, so that down the road in 5-10 years, when that burns out, we can easily just go and replace that with any other LED MR16 bulb. So I like that. Plus, if you're new to the doing landscape lighting and you don't know which bulb to use, well, if you put in a bulb that's not bright enough, well, then you can always just go and change it for a brighter bulb. Same thing, as your landscape grows, and as your trees grow, sometimes you might want to put a brighter bulb in there. This easily allows you to do that with this light. So that's why I love using this uplight, but it doesn't just have to be on trees. It can be on architectural features of the house like this. We got some nice stone columns that we're gonna really be killing two birds with one stone here. We're gonna gently uplight this so it brings out all the little subtleties in the rock. But then what's gonna happen too is that light is gonna make it up to that top soffit, and it's gonna kind of create a nice glow that's actually gonna give us some porch lighting too. Even though we have porch lights here, they're very bright, whereas this is gonna give us a nice subtle glow, and this is more gonna give us the effect from the street and from the curb appeal with just some functional lighting up top. So again, why I really like this light. The one thing we are gonna do with this one, because it's close to a porch, an area we're gonna be walking by, is we're gonna use something called a hex baffle. All a hex baffle is this little aluminum shield that basically just goes over top of the bulb. So if you take this off, throw that underneath the glass, and then pop that back on, what that's gonna do is it's gonna soften the light a little bit, but more importantly, it's gonna deflect any of that side glare. So as you're walking around and by that light, less of that light is gonna hit your eye, and it's gonna be more concentrated on the nice columns that we have here. So that's something you wanna use anytime you're kind of lighting the entryway of your house or by a walkway or something like that. Hex baffle is a really good tool to have. And the last thing I'll mention about this uplight, when you are lighting some trees, a good rule of thumb, if you're using a 4-watt LED lamp that puts out about 250 lumens, great for trees that are 8 to roughly 15 to 20 feet high. I would say from about 25 to 35 feet, you want to use a slightly brighter bulb, closer to a 5-watt LED bulb. And then when you get into some really big trees that are over that 35-foot mark, you probably want to go and start looking at a 6-watt LED bulb so that you can really push that light into the canopy. But that's why you're going to use this light for 70 to 80% of the places in your yard, because it's such a versatile light. It does so many things, and that's the reason that we use so many of these year after year. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys got some great do-it-yourself landscape lighting tips. Now, please be sure to go to our website at lightingdoctor.ca and check out our how-to page. It's full of great resources, from our podcast to our video to our most frequently asked questions. And also check out our Try It Before You Buy It light, where you can actually go now and get one of our premium quality uplights and a King Innovation Insta-Light, which is basically a battery pack now that allows you to go and run those lights and test them out on your property. Try it for 14 days. If you don't love it, send it back to us and we'll give you a full refund. And if not, you keep the light at a discounted rate and go and buy what you need for your project. So thanks again for watching. Please be sure to leave us a comment. We love your feedback. Have a great day.